The earliest clear memory I have is in learning about it, learning the word and what it was, just in school when I was a kid. And I remember being, you know, somewhat surprised, or it made an impact. You know, I remembered it, and I remember it being a very brief explanation, you know, with not a lot of details.
What happened? Where was this, in school?
Yeah, probably fifth grade maybe.
Okay, what happened?
I just remember being told that it was something that was done to all boys. You know, it was kind of just implied that it was done to all of us, and that it was a sort of ancient tradition. You know, maybe that it had some sort of roots in our religious background, but you know, that wasn't a clear thing. It was just something that we did. You know, it was just part of what we do.
Was it the teacher that said this?
Yeah, and the belief that maybe it was cleaner. I remember one of my classmates asking the question why they only do this to boys, and everybody laughed. And you know, when you learn more about this issue, you realize that that was a very astute question, considering that this is an issue for girls in other parts of the world.
And refresh my memory, how old were the kids in this class?
Maybe fifth grade.
Oh.
Yeah.
So 10 or 11 years old?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little older.
Yeah.
That's just when I learned about it, and I just thought about it for a long time. And then I met friends in my college experience who were themselves intact, and, you know, sort of spoke critically of the practice, and so that resonated with me. I just kind of instinctively agreed, I think. You know, I always felt uncomfortable about it. I mean, the biggest thing is I felt confused when I first learned about it as a kid. I didn't understand how it was even possible that, you know, this could have occurred. You know, this sense of how, you know, thinking about myself, and, you know, I didn't have a good enough education. I didn't have a good enough explanation or education to understand really what it was.
Right.
I researched all kinds of things, and I eventually looked into this, and you know, found out a lot more than I knew I was going to find out. I particularly kind of had a moment with it when I found a global survey of all of the harm documented throughout the world, and I looked at all of these photos of the different maimed and botched men.
Yes.
And the realization that was a reality for certain men really reached me and impacted me. And you know, I was just thinking about the wound that it is even if it's done correctly.
Right.
And then also keeping in mind people who are harmed more seriously.
Yeah.
Well, part of why I'm hesitant about wanting to share this is the sense of overwhelm that I get in trying to communicate with others about this. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about themselves. I don't want anyone to feel a sense of shame or guilt about the issue. I just want to try to help educate. But at a certain point, that doesn't always feel well received. And I feel like I've just said my piece in enough of the people that are important to me, in enough public ways. I don't know. It's overwhelming, obviously. Yeah, it's for the K too.
How old are you?
I'm 31 now.
31, yeah. If you were new to it at the time.
Yeah. No, just you first asked me how I came about to be aware of this issue or to have a perspective on it. And, you know, I learned about it as a kid. I met other people who were intact as a young adult. And then I thought about it as a young adult, you know, 22, 23. And, you know, I was reflecting on my own body and my own mind and my own health. And I just connected the dots within my own spirit. You know, I just kind of understood that this was a real trauma, and that it was okay to acknowledge that connection. You know, sort of put two and two together. And, you know, I had also worked with farm animals and on some farm jobs before this, and taken some classes when I was in college. And I was equally taken aback when the class would do some sort of a surgical alteration on an animal. I found that very shocking and astounding and uncomfortable, and so I became very passionate about and interested in animal welfare, or particularly in agriculture.
Yeah.
And then, I'd had that experience, had those visual experiences, and, kind of like a nursing student being a part of or witnessing a circumcision. I kind of had that with animals.
Yeah.
And then when I came to think about this issue, and I sort of resonated with that, powerful reaction that the animals had when they were being physically altered. And I just recognized that sort of energy was in me.
Yeah.
And that it kind of made me feel like an animal. It made me feel like a farm animal, or like a branded human being.
Yeah.
So in a way, it kind of feels like a slave mark. And that's about the most powerful way I felt about it in that moment. But it's, I just felt like an animal, and that's kind of how I reacted. I just kind of had to let it out. And so that's kind of the wild ways that we each come to think about this, if we were affected by it or we know someone who was affected by it.
Yeah. You got a rap there I'd like to hear.
Circumcision, superstition, medical fiction, contradiction, without indication, information, or my permission.
You mentioned someone you know who was prematurely
Close
retracted.
friend.
Close friend. Will you tell me that story?
Yeah. So I'll leave out his name, but he
Yeah.
has also given me permission to use him in my advocacy, which I appreciate. So he was left intact. His father was intact, St. Louisan. But when he was, I think, 7 or 8, he went to the doctor, and for some other reason, checkup or whatnot. And the doctor said, "Let me just take care of this real quick." And he grabbed his foreskin and forcibly retracted him. And he said that it was extremely painful, and that he couldn't walk for a week, and never healed from it entirely. Yeah,
And that's
not even entirely. He just said he never healed from it.
That's medical malpractice.
Yeah, and I would say it's sexual assault is really, when it happens to a baby, we have all this, nomenclature or, words, euphemisms that make it seem like a medical procedure. When it happens to a 7 or 8 year old, it's a little more clear. It's just a sexual abuse.